You're never going to guess where this game is taking place. Pyramids of Egypt is a simple game made by John Romero when he was still working for Softdisk. In the unlikely case that you don't know who is John Romero, he is one of the creators of the legendary id Software that made games such as Commander Keen, Wolfenstein 3D, Doom and Quake. And what about Softdisk? Well, Softdisk is the place where the founders of the id Software used to work before they started their own company. But I'm not going to talk about history here, so enough of that. Let's get back to the game. Pyramids of Egypt consists of 30 consecutive levels, in which our goal is to collect all crystals, diamonds, gems, whatever. You are to collect stuff. Naturally, there are some obstacles on our way, like snakes that can kill you. Fortunately, if we collect special objects, we can deal with them. I've looked at all that, and my first thought was that I've already seen this kind of gameplay in some old game, but I had a bit of trouble remembering its title. Yes, that was a cheap trick. Naturally, Pyramids of Egypt is a Pac-Man clone. It introduces few new mechanics, but at its core it relies heavily on the original. You are collecting stuff, in this case gems or whatever it is, and avoiding monsters, in this case huge snakes, in a labyrinth that fits the screen. Collecting special object, in this case a can of gasoline, allows you to kill monsters before they kill you. This is where Romero style shows. After snake attacks, we get a gory death animation, and if you want to kill a snake, you make a fire and burn it alive. Well, I've expected nothing less from the creator of Doom. Let's stop here for a moment though. As you can read in the manual, you can only start a fire if there are dry bricks just below of your character. This makes sense. After all, it would be hard to start a fire on a wet surface. One thing I don't get is why you have to have a dry bricks below. This is a top-down view, so the bricks below your character are actually walls. Why would you need a dry wall to start a fire on the ground? It makes no sense. Well, other than restricting the player to make the game a bit more difficult. Unless there was some technical limitation in drawing the backgrounds for moving objects, perhaps? But let's leave it, it's not the most frustrating mechanic in this game anyway. What is it then? Well, movement. As I've said, level fits the screen, so there is no scrolling. What you end up with is 20 by 16 grid. Any given square of that grid can be either a corridor that you can move through, a wall that obviously you cannot move through, or a door, opened or closed. Depending on that, you can move through it or not. So far so good. Easy. Unfortunately, there are also walls that take only half of the square. So if you combine two of such walls, one beside the other, you may create an opening big enough for your character to move through, right? Well, wrong. You can only move through squares that match the grid of the level, so even though the opening is big enough, the fact that it's split between the squares makes it useless for you. What makes it even worse is that you can move diagonally when there is hardly any space for your character to move through. This is quite irritating, as visually the game is confusing the player as to the movement possibilities. While I'm at it, there is also another irritating thing about diagonal movement. You can only do that using the numpad keys. Romero proudly stated that it doesn't matter whether the numlock is on or not. Well, that's nice. I would like even more if I could just use the arrow keys. But then I get it that coding key combinations can be a pain, so no big deal. The graphics are rather simplistic. Character reminds me of the first Dangerous Dave. Snakes look basically like snakes, and automatic doors? Yes, you've heard that right. Apparently there are automatic doors in the Egyptian pyramids. Well, they open and close on their own, as if they were taken straight from some haunted space station. Their only purpose is to limit your movement and possibly slow down your escape from those nasty snakes. They are fair, though, as they block the snakes too. So that's okay. One thing I've noticed is that while you cannot enter the door square when the door is not fully opened, nothing stops you from standing in the doorway when they close. This makes for a useful exploit. Probably the availability of the square to move into is only checked upon attempt to enter it, not while already being in it. After all, what should have happened then? We could be squashed, but then this game has already enough ways to kill us, so adding another one could make it a bit too frustrating. So in the end, I wouldn't count this exploit as a flaw. So we've got pyramids with doors from Space Station. What else? I've mentioned the wet walls that prevent you from making fires. The thing is that they are actually not darker as one would expect from the wet surface. They are yellow. What yellow fluid can be found inside a pyramid? For that information, we have to look into the book written by the famous paleoastrologist Erich von Daniken. When he traveled to Egypt to hunt for information supporting alien involvement in human development, he naturally visited the pyramids. After all, how on earth could our primitive ancestors build them? Must have been aliens helping them. But that's not the thing that got stuck in my mind after reading that particular book of his. What actually stayed with me was the description of the smell inside the pyramids. It stank urine, as local guards apparently would relieve themselves in the side corridors. This tells me two things. One, there was no respect for history in Egypt back in the 90s or 80s or whenever that book was written. Two, there is no mistake that you've got wet walls instead of floors in Romero's game. After all, men usually urinate while standing facing something, like a tree, wall, monument, or whatever is at hand. But why can't we start a fire next to a wall soaking with urine? Out of sheer disgust, maybe? Am I overthinking this? Now that we've got all the mysteries figured out, we can discuss the game itself. I must say it's quite challenging at first. Even though you get extra life after completing a level, you will not have it easy. Game is rather fast-paced, so you have to be quick. In levels with many snakes, you have to be lucky too. Yes, luck is the thing here. Your enemies don't care about you too much. They venture through the corridors in somewhat random fashion. If you end up in their way, then you die. But they may just pass one square from you, completely ignoring your existence. That's a bit disappointing, as it makes Pyramids of Egypt more chaotic and, as a result, less satisfying. I didn't expect self-learning algorithms, but some sort of target tracking would have been nice. Did original Pac-Man have any sort of target tracking? I must say I really don't remember. If you do remember, then just feel free to let me know in the comments. Anyway, moving on. As for the level designs, they vary a lot. Some are fun to play, while others not so much. In general, I didn't enjoy levels with more than 3 or 4 snakes, as I found them way too random for my taste. Too many doors, or doors moving too fast, didn't work for me either. For the same reasons, too much randomness. Overall, I found this game quite enjoyable and fun to play. The pace and steering needs some getting used to, but that shouldn't take more than a few minutes. Pyramids of Egypt does not offer the option of saving state, so you have to complete it in one go. Fortunately, there is an option to pause, so you can safely stop and think for a moment. I found it quite useful to pause at the start of a level to make a plan before all the action starts. Pyramids of Egypt is a nice Pac-Man clone. Quite challenging at times, but not to the point of being overly frustrating. Lack of saving state mechanics forces the player to move carefully and with some sort of a plan. Well, at least that was the approach I've used to complete it. I'll post a long play within few days. Meanwhile, feel free to comment, subscribe, etc. I haven't chosen my next game, so you can also post some suggestions. And that would be all for now. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.